Okay. And we are up to today, half a century. Today is Daf Nun. So just to recap what we did so far, we have an argument between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yishmael, and there are two ways of understanding the argument between Rabbi Akiva and Yishmael. So Rabbi Yosef argue what they're arguing. So let's first go through each one. Rabbi understands Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi understands the argument as follows: that everyone agrees if you dig a hole in the middle of the public space in a Shus Rabim, you're definitely liable. Why? Because it says in the pasuk, if you open the lid and you dig a hole. If you open just somebody's lid and you're responsible, aren't you responsible if you dig the entire hole yourself? But to teach you, even though you have no ownership, but the activity of digging a hole is sufficient to warrant that you are responsible. When do they argue? Rabbi Akiva Yishmael is if it's in a private place. Rabbi Akiva says if you have a boyer in your private place and you gave access to the public to go around it, and somebody falls in, you're liable because the pasuk says when it comes to payment, Baal haboyer yishalom, the owner of the boyer. So obviously you're an owner; it's yours. Rabbi Yishmael says Baal haboyer means the one who created the boyer. But if it's in your own property, you don't have to pay. So go to Yishmael, in your own property, you don't have to pay.
Someone else would be
because the whole idea of a bird is a place where you have no right to. The bird is mine, even though you have access to the bird is mine. So if anything, I'm just a cause for you getting hurt. I don't have to pay for causes. So when our Mishnah makes a distinction between a Shus Yachid and a Shus Rabim, our Mishnah says that whether you dug a hole in a public place or you dug a hole in your private place and people have access to it, that your chayiv obviously follows Rabbi Akiva according to the Rabbi's version. Rabbi Yosef holds no. Rabbi Yosef holds that a boy in Shus Yachid, everyone holds that you're chayiv. It says Bal HaBoyer. The argument is a boy in a public place. Rabbi Akiva says you are pater because it's not yours. Why should you pay? I caused damage, but you don't pay for causations. Rabbi Yishmael says kriya psicha, and therefore he holds you chayiv. So our mission then would be Rabbi Yishmael. So now we're up to the Gemara of Nun, and I'll have to ask a few questions. It says the Gemara, we're at the end of the narrow lines. Into the wide lines already, and where it says Mesvei, 3 lines into the wide lines. The first word of the line, we start asking some questions. Mesvei, I'll ask you a question. It says the following: it says if somebody digs a hole in the middle of the street, but the entrance is in a private place, potter, you are potter. You are potter. If somebody falls into the boy through the private property, you are potter because he had no right to be there, even though the entire hole is underneath the ground, is in a public place. But the entrance, the opening is on my private property. You have no right to be there. And right now, the Gemara things we're talking about is that the private property you gave access to the public all around this hole, and it seems clearly from here that you are potter. Because the hole itself is Shus Yachid, and you are potter. We follow the view that the Shus Yachid is potter, which is a problem according to Rabbi Yosef, who said that everyone agrees Shus Yachid is chayiv. Rabbi Yosef, everyone agrees Shus Yachid is chayiv, and here you see clearly that Shus Yachid, you're potter. Even though you shouldn't be doing that, but if you did it, you are potter. Why shouldn't we be doing that? Because you have no right to dig holes in the public place, underneath the street. You make more fragile, whatever it is. But since the opening is my private property, even though I gave him access until the opening, but the opening itself is mine, I'm not responsible. Then the Braisa continues. If you dig boilers, we'll see them more later, the mission later. Boilers is round, shichin is a sort of a rectangle, midas is the cave with a roof on top. The opening is you're chayiv. Obviously, doesn't matter where the hole is. If the entrance is shusarabim, you're chayiv. If you dig a hole in the shusarabim, abutting the shusarabim, but the hole itself is private property. Those people who dig for foundations for the house, which everyone understands. You build your house, and your house is fronting the street. You have to build foundations, so foundations creep into the main street. But since it's a common practice, everyone accepts it. Then you are potter. So then you are potter. So now we're asked, why is it? Why? Because like you're digging a hole in your own private property, and and you are potter. So the Gemara says. But Rabbi Yosef, he says no. Since it's abutting the Shus Rabim, even though the foundations are yours, you're chayiv because the people have a right to walk there, and you put a stumbling block there. You got to do some kind of a separation, either build a wall 10 tefachim high, or you have to distance it from you can't give people access all the way up to the hole. Or the you got to make it at least you have to have a piece of land that's 4 tefachim wide that is private property, so people don't walk there, so they're protected. So it seems from here, the end of the Bryce at time, but the only reason why you are potted is if it's still your property. The only reason you're potted is the Luushin, because it's the foundations, which is common practice, and everyone does it. So you're not negligent. Halal should have not been for the fact that you build these holes for foundations. What? Chayiv. You'd be chayiv. So what is he from here? That if you have a boy in a Shusay Yachid with access to the public, you are chayiv. So, Harmani, who is the author of this brisa? Who's the author of the brisa? So here it seems to me that a boy, and not only that, the brisa itself seems to contradict itself. The end of the brisa is the only reason why you fucked it is because you build it from foundations. You're not building foundations. I built a hole in my private property, and people have access to it. I'd be chayiv. But the Reisha said, if you in the beginning of the brisa said clearly that if you build a hole in Shusay Yachid, you are potter. So there's contradiction in Reisha Sefer. So according to Rabba, who says that there's an argument, Reisha Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Kiva. According to Rabba, who says that that if it's in a private property, you are potter. That is Rabbi Shmuel. So according to Rabba, they're arguing about private property, whether they're chayiv or not. Rabbi Kiva says chayiv, says bal habor yishal. Rabbi Shmuel says you're potter. Okay, so the author of this brayse, the first part is Rabbi Shmuel, and the Sefer is Rabbi Kiva. The Sefer where it says that in private property chayiv must be Rabbi Kiva, because they're arguing in that. Remember, Rabbi Yosef says everyone agrees with Yachid Chayiv. We got a problem with Rabbi Yosef, so who's the beginning and the end of the Mishnah? The Brisa. According to Rabbi, that itself is the argument. As strange as it is, you have a Brisa with one part of the Brisa is one opinion, the other part of the Brisa is another opinion. And Rabbi Yosef, who says that everybody agrees that in the private property you are Chayiv, because it's Balaboy, it's Bishlei Mesefer David Hakel. El Reisha Mani, who's the author of the Reisha that in the private property you put? Lloyd Rabbi Yishmael or Rabbi Kiva. Amalach Rabbi Yosef said no. Everyone agrees. Everyone agrees to this brisa. So you can ask me a question. So how come if everyone agrees and everyone says it's private property, even though there's access to the side? You said everyone holds your chai because bal haboid yishalim. So how come at the beginning it says that you're a potter? The Reisha, who told you that in the Reisha is talking about that people had access, that you understood if I build a hole in my property that I gave people access up abutting my hole. That's not what happened here. The Reisha you never give any access. Somebody trespasses. That's why he's potter. Therefore. Now that the Yeshua says that it goes according, I can understand the Bryce and learn it goes according to everybody, but the Yeshua is talking about that it's private property, and that's why you potter. According to Rabbi, I don't have to say this stranger Bryce that what part of it is one opinion, part is another opinion. Nami loy sukmik tanoi. I don't have to say it's an argument tonight, but I will say, but the Yeshua Rabbi Shmuel, you're right. We talking about a case you gave access, and it's a shusayachid, only the whole, but Rabbi Shmuel says you're potter only in the shusayachid yachai, but in the shusayachid you're potter. And Bal Habar means the owner, the one who made the hole in the public place, but in the private place, you potter. Sefer Nami Rabbi Shmuel. Everything Rabbi Shmuel. Everything Rabbi Shmuel. So how come the Sefer says the only reason why you're exempt is because you build foundation holes? But if you build regular holes, it seems you'd be high wide the private property. The time of dilution of Labush Chayv, you're going to Arvach Avuch Rabim. It's encroaching the Shus Rabim. Part of that hole is actually inside the Shus Rabim. So because it's foundations for a house and everybody understands you need, bigger holes, it's like we all have this unwritten agreement that it's all right. But if you dug a hole and it went into the Shus Rabim, even if the majority of the holes are my private property, then Rabbi Shmuel is make the Yuachayv. Because the hole itself, the entrance of the hole, is also partially Shus Rabim. Okay, makes sense. A question. So again, we have an argument. Rabbi Yosef. According to Rabbi Yosef, everyone agrees. In a Shusay Yachid, you are responsible. It says Bal Habar Yishalom. They're only arguing about what happens in the Shusay Rabbi. In the Shusay Rabbi, because it's not there's no ownership. Rabbi Kiva says you're exempt, and Rabbi Shmuel says you're a chayiv. And Rabbi learned the other way around. That in a Shusay Rabbi, everyone was a chayiv because you dug a hole. They're arguing Shusay Yachid. Rabbi Kiva says Bal Habar, the owner, and Rabbi Shmuel says no. That Balaboy means the owner, the one who created it, not the owner. Makes sense. The question says, somebody dug home the piskus rabbi opening shusarabim chayiv, you are chayiv. But it says, but shusayachid that's muchel shusarabim potter. But if it's shusayachid next to the shusarabim, you are potter. Now, according to Rabbi Yosef, he says that everyone agrees that if you dug a hole of shusayachid and you gave people access up to the hole, you're chayiv. Because it says Balaboy, everyone agrees, and he says clearly that you are potter. If you have a rabba, kura bishmal, is a bishmal hold, and it's just a rabba, you are potter. You shazam yechai, but you're potter. And Rabbi Yosef, bishleibedation, the part that it says it's just a rabba yechai, and that's according to Rabbi Yosef, that's what the argument is. Okay, follows a bishmal. Ella seifa, that says it's just a yachid, you are potter, mani, who's also there, like Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Kiva. I will tell you the evolution. The Reish is talking about a case where you build holes for foundations, and that we accept that you're allowed to, and it's not negligent. Divri Hakov with everybody. Tanabana, a very interesting Gemara not coming up. Tanabana, we learned. Chafad, you dug a hole, pasach, and you opened it up. In the street, you dug a hole for a cistern to have rainwater should come in there. But muscle it up, and you did it for the benefit of the public, and you said, I'm giving it over to the council. I'm donating it to the council. Potter, you are potter. Bachlek is whether you have to give a lid with it or not. Chafaru pasa, but if he dug a hole in the middle of the street and he opened it up, he didn't give it over to the public, and chayiv. So clearly, we're talking about in the Shus Rabbim. This follows according to Rabbi Yosef the view of Rabbi Shmuel, and according to Rabba, everybody holds that in Shus Rabbim you're chayiv. This actually was the custom of Nechunya, who used to dig holes everywhere. He used to, as the Jurassic, he would make wells and give it out to the public. Heard about this great man. They said, Kiyam zu halacha zu. This person fulfilled this halacha in the Brisa that he gave it over to the rabbi. He did the right thing by giving it over to the public so they can have what to drink. What do you call it? So that's it. The only mitzvah he did was this halacha. We also kept this halacha. So now the Gemara tells a fascinating story, which we already had in once. Says the Gemara, the story about this person, the daughter. One day she fell into this large cistern, and they told this over to Chanina ben Doisa. The first hour, Amalem said to them, Shalom, she's all right. Don't worry. Don't panic. She'll survive. Shania, they came to say, now we don't see her. We can't. Amalem, Shalom, it's all good. Shalishi, the third hour, Amalehem, he said to them, also, miraculously, she just exited from this pit. Amrullah, they went over, they found her, and they said to her, Mi Helach, how did you get out of this pit? You fell into this deep well. This male goat I met, the Zok and Echem Manhiga, there's an old man leading it, and they saved me. And Rashi says, interestingly, must be from a Medrash, Rashi says that was a ram of Yitzchak, and the Zok and Manhiga was Yitzchak himself. Sorry, Zok and Manhiga was Abram. It was a ram of Yitzchak Akedah, and the Zokim was Abram Avinu. And that this ram and Abram Akedah is supposed to help us out, not only in Rosh Hashanah, but every time you're in Eitzah Sarah, it's supposed to help you out. So he said, so they went back to him. You got up, you said, no way people can climb out of a well. How did you know that she was saved? I'm not a Navi, we're not a Ben Navi. Just what I said. That tzaddik, he called tzaddik, no nachunya, chayfer, shichin, and mayas, is, he worked so hard to give it to the public, that they would take revenge and kill his own children. Alpha became his own son died from thirst. The irony, Shnemer said, and why Taka? We just said that it doesn't happen, but it says a pasuk will be a fire and so on, a sviva, and all around him, nis aramay, it'll be terrible wind, tempestuous weather, all that. Melamed, but the word nisara also means cider, chuta cider. Melamed baruch medaktikim sviva v'chuta cider. The Abish is particular with those tzaddikim, even like a hairbreadth. Rab Nechunya says from here, it says a pasuk. Kale Naratz, the Side Kadeshim Rabba. The Noira is also all those around it. Now, interesting, this Abnechunya is the same Nechunya, Shirish Nechunya or something, but maybe the same Nechunya that he dashed, and the side says it's Abchanina. Now, what's very interesting is in Siman Yud Zayin in Shulchan Aruch. First of all, the first 2 hours there was no miracle because if you can save yourself naturally, why bother make miracles? Miracles only happen when you have no choice. in Siman Yuzayin, which is like the longest Siman ever has, is all the laws of Agunas, all the truths are in Siman Yuzayin. So later on, there it talks about if a person falls into a well, into a cave, when can you come out and say there's no longer an Aguna? Actually, they just declared, the last week they declared that all the women whose husbands, were killed over there. What happened on October 7th? They declared that they're no longer Agunas. Even though they don't recognize bodies. Anyway, so it says over there, 3 hours. When can you come and testify in the court that she's no longer Aguna if the husband fell in and a mayim sheyesh lahem soif, and you can see, if somebody climbs out the other side, after 3 hours, the guy couldn't survive. Very difficult thing to understand. How long can you survive underwater?
Underwater, this is stomach of pits.
You're in a boat.
We had Hebel Haber, it was poisonous.
That we'll see tomorrow. We'll see later today. Sorry. But it's in a boat. We're going to say like this. So we have a big machlekes in the Shainim how to learn it. Some say 3 hours means the third hour. The third hour you can already testify because there's no walls to hold on to, nothing else. You probably eventually fell in. Others say it has to be complete 3 hours. The Marit says shoy doesn't mean hours; it means time slots. It could be 20. We have a taster that says that like by Miriam, that for 1 hour or whatever it is, that it means an hour can mean a quarter of an hour. So there's a big machlekes in halacha how long, and Yehuda says that maybe even longer than 3 hours. But this little story here becomes the basis for halacha of when you can testify that a person long aguna, if somebody fell into a water, safe, and you can't see, you don't see a person coming out. How long do you think the person can survive? Tread water. How long can you tread water? It says the Gemara, Amar Chanina. What?
Very famous book called
That's very loud, yeah? Okay. Amar Chanina. Anybody says that the Eibush is Meichel Navedis, Yutru Chayev, his life comes hefker. Shenemer said, "True, Tommy Polly Kachol of Mishpat. The Eibush gives justice, and all the drachim are Mishpat."
Is it Batra? He gives up.
He's Meichel. He's Meichel.
Oh,
We did have that the Eibush is Meichel on what all the Avedis, but he's not Meichel on Talmud Torah. But that's from the Eibush perspective. You have no right to say it. As Rashi says, because you go around saying it, what happens to do tshuva? The Eibush doesn't really care if I do this Aveda. As Rashi says, you're giving people, encouraging people, emboldening people to go ahead and sin. Says about it further, Rab Chana said, it says, Erech Apayim, which we said today, but so what's Erech Apayim in plural? The lake said Erech Ap, the Eibush's anger, is lasts for a while. Why is Erech Apayim plural? Af Erech Apayim is two kinds of anger. That the Eibush has patience. He has patience for tzaddikim and he has patience for the shrine. Tzaddikim, sometimes they suffer because he delays their reward so they can go straight to Gan Eden where they pass away. And the Shaim, he delays the punishment so that he can reward them in this world, and then they get punished when they go to the Mambis. So the Moshe Torah we learned. Talking about justice and everything else, we learned. A person should not clear his garden out with all the stones and toss it into the public place. People might stumble, might get hurt. So we want to tell the story. The person that he was clearing out his property, the pebbles, and clearing it into the public space. This chassid found him. You push the kela. How do you say reika in English? Gary, I don't have a word for it in English. You empty vessel. Interesting way of putting it. Why are you clearing out the field, which is not really your property, and putting it into a public place, which really is your property? The guy mocked him. What do you mean? The field is my property. I own it. My name is on the deed, and the public place is not. A short time later, suddenly he lost a lot of money. He had to sell his property, his land. And so the field no longer was his. But he was walking on that very street where he placed all those pebbles. The very stones that he put there, he tripped on them and he got hurt. And now we realize your family is a chassid. That's very right what that person said. Don't take life, anything in life for granted, because everything we have is a gift from Hashemayim. And just because you have it today doesn't mean you'll have it tomorrow. On the other hand, it's just Rabbim interesting. It's a big chakira. It's just Rabbim belongs to no one. It belongs to everyone. How do we understand a public space? That no one owns it, and therefore no one can stop you from going there, or every single person in the world has a share in it. From the language that he uses over here, it seems like he said, and he's comparing it to a field. The field really is not yours. Rosh Hashanah really is yours. Sounds like that everyone has a share in the Rosh Hashanah. Okay, continue exploring the laws of birth. I just remember the story I got to share with you. Years ago it happened, and I can't remember exactly the details. It's been a long, it's been like 20 years ago, 25 years ago, but this from person who was a terrible, driving from Montreal to New York, and it was a terrible storm, and he was looking for motels because he couldn't drive. It was too dangerous to drive, so he stopped in the closest town, looked for motels. There was some kind of convention going on, and every motel was taken. But they did tell him there's some old age home that belongs to Catholic Church or something. They might have some spare rooms. So he went there, had no choice. He went there, and they gave him a spare room. In the morning, when he was ready to go continue traveling, the priest came over and said, we had a Jewish person here who lived in by us, as a senior citizen. He passed away. Maybe you can take him and give him a Jewish burial. Just passed away last night or this morning. Take him and give him a Jewish burial. So he took the mace and put it in his car, and he was going to New York. So he thought, we'll go to, I don't know which cemetery it was in New York, and he will go and bring it to the Chever Kadisha. They should bury him. A person, all he had was his name, whatever information they gave him, but no family, no nothing. Anyhow, he came to New York and he went to the Chever Kadisha first thing, and he made a beeline there, and he gave them the documents, and they were going to bury the mace, and they were looking up. There's a plot, there's a section in that particular cemetery. I'm sure a lot of them have it. People have no family, people who know nothing, no history, where they buried them. So they went and they looked through their files, and they found that this person many years earlier donated to the Beis HaKoros, bought the land to give it to bury people who had no family and no money. They should be buried. They should help that he was buried in his own land, his own investment. Yes. So that's supposed to buy your own plot while you're alive. Says the Mishnah.
So it's school of
Exactly. School of Arichas Yom. You know the famous Ma'aser of Bava Shimon, the two old Chassidim were having a big fight, that they all wanted to buy the plot near where the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe was buried, and they're both quite wealthy, and they were ready to give all the money in the world to buy it. And the person who owned the land was selling it. There was no end to it, because whatever one person offered, the next person went up $1. And continue going up and up and up. So they went to to the Rav of Heights of Bava Shimon working, and they each one said their case. This guy has this family, schus others and this schus others and blah. So Bava Shimon thought about it. He said, very simple. Sometimes the Gemara says that if we don't know who owns something, they call out koydem zach. Whoever gets the first, it should merit it. So I'll tell you guys, call out koydem zach. Whoever gets the first, each one said to the other guy, you know what? You can have it. Anyway, back to the Mishnah. If somebody digs a hole in the public street, the nafal l'toichet, and falls inside there, a shoyr, a chamayr, a cow, or a donkey, chayiv. Well, you dug a hole, you are chayiv. And this follows the opinion that says in the Shus Rabbim you are chayiv, which is either, according to Rabbah, this follows everybody, and according to Rabbi Yosef, this follows Rabbi Shmuel. Whether you dig a boy which is round, shiach, which I told you is rectangle, a hole in the ground, a myra, a cave that has a cover on it, charitzin is a hole, and it widens, and it sort of what do you call it? It has no cover on top; it's wide open. And uniitzin is where it sort of widens as it tapers up, it tapers down as it goes down. It gets narrower and narrower, and it goes up, it gets wider and wider. You're chayiv, whichever hole it is, you're chayiv. You can't lama never boy. If any hole you're chayiv. Why does the Torah use boy as a paradigm? Because we need it. Ma boy sheyesh boy kedei lahamis. A boy has to be 10 tefachim deep if you want to have the ability to kill an animal. Asor tefachim. Av kol sheyesh boy kedei lahamis tefachim. So therefore, all of these holes, you're not liable for killing an animal only the animal if the hole was 10 tefachim deep. If the hole was less than 10 tefachim deep, and the animal died, then it wasn't really the hole that caused the death. But for damages, a chayiv. Now here we have the famous argument that we discussed before, and it's a difficult argument. But to understand the argument, so one of the Rishonim, interesting, explains as follows. He says, when you make a hole and an animal falls in, you did not kill the animal. So if my cow goes and gores another animal, my cow killed the animal actively. Shane, my cow went and ate your crop. But if there's a hole, you came to the hole and you fell into the hole. So what happened is my hole caused the animal to die. So generally speaking, when it comes to damages, if I'm just a cause of damages, grum I'm potter. The Torah made a chiddush here. When it comes to boyer, even though you're only a cause, I'm going to hold you responsible. So therefore, which cause? There's two causes in a boyer. One is the bang, when you land on the ground, and the impact of landing on the ground, the damage that does. And the other one is the stale air, the foul air that's there. So since both are causes, which cause is it that the Torah decided to say, you know what, you're going to be chai for that? So come look at it says, is lahavolay. It's the foul air, but why not the chavate? Why not the impact? Because I did nothing with impact. I didn't make new walls. That dirt, those rocks were always there. What I did was I only exposed what was always there. So I never touched those rocks. I touched the sand that was above it. So I had nothing to do with the chabat or the impact. I'm not even a cause. I'm less than a cause. I'm so indirect. What I created was in that vacuum there, in that hole, suddenly now there's foul there. So therefore, that's what the Torah is charging me for. When it comes to the impact, that's not me. That's public property. And Shmuel says, I agree with you, the foul there, but it's because I'm the one who exposed it. Previously, nobody was able to have access to this, to the bottom of this pit. So therefore, because I exposed it, I made it happen. You're going to say, according to Shmuel, maybe only the impact. How does Shmuel know it's stale air as well, the foul air, including the impact? Maybe the Torah only meant the impact, because that's what I created. I exposed it. But not really for the foul air. The Torah testified in the boy. It says stop boy. Anybody. You filled it with cotton, so therefore there's a cushion, there's a buffer. And you fall down, so look, I didn't fall directly onto the exposed rock or anything else. I'm still chayiv. So Gemara has a question. My benaya, it's all theory. What's the difference if I'm liable because of the foul air, if I'm liable because of the impact? Either way, I'm liable. So what's the difference? And even Rab will agree. If you fall and let's say you break your neck, so the Rab should be saying you're potter. Oh, we see clearly here what caused your death was the impact, and Rab holds you're not chayiv for impact. No, Rab holds you still chayiv because it's the impact together with the foul air, because there is foul air there. So we say they both did it together, and the Torah holds you responsible for the foul air.
Minimum measurement of 10 tefachim for a bow.
For killing, but for damages it's less.
Like a bow 11 tefachim. It's not going to be noxious gas.
Maybe it depends also how wide the hole is. That's true, but maybe it also depends how wide the hole is. I don't know. Does he come out?
It's like the table height. It's not very big.
That's true. I guess I don't know.
It's enough if you stumble and fall because crack their neck on the head.
Yeah, fair enough. We actually had the Gimel Manal with there's a cost of 10 tefachim. So the Hamesi like Ika Benayu. You know what the difference is? What happened the other way around? The Ovid Goiva B'Shusarabim. You built a mound in middle of Shusarabim that's 10 tefachim high. An animal climbed up and fell down and broke its neck, but it landed on the level ground. So according to Rav, there's no foul air there on level ground, and you don't pay for impact. But according to Shmuel, even with no foul air, you still pay for the impact. I caused the impact to take place, even though I didn't expose anything here. But by me building that mound, I caused that animal. L'Shmuel, sorry, the Avi gave L'Rav, I gave him a chayiv. Because the Rav, you're not chayiv at all. Because there's no foul air. L'Shmuel, I gave him a chayiv. Who holds your chayiv? My time of the Rav. What's this for a Rav? It says in Pasuk, the Nofal Shama. It says in Pasuk, and then in there falls in a shayr or a chamoy. The nafal achi yipel, you have to fall in. derech nefila, it has to be a hole in the ground, not fall off. There's a mound, it's falling off. Rav said it has to be falling in, and therefore it must be talking about a hole in the ground. Shmuel and Rashi says face first. When you're falling in, you're falling face first. So that's why 10 tefachim deep, maybe there is, you're sucking in whatever is in the bottom, the foul layer. Well, the Shmuel, the Nafa means fell, cold of mashma. I don't care how you fell. I don't care if you fell off the top of a mound or you fell into a hole. Tonight we learned, we learned the following. What does Mishnah say? Why does it say boy? My boy can kill 10 tvachim. Any hole which is 10 tvachim deep. What do you mean afkol? Coming to add. What's it coming to add? Afkol. What's the Mishnah adding? Already the Mishnah delineated 4 different types of holes. Then it says afkol. What's afkol? Lasuya goiva. So to add something Mishnah didn't talk about, you build a mound. So if you fall off the mound, same thing. You are liable. El-Rav, you only chai for holes, and the Mishnah basically describes every possible hole. Afkol osuyimai. So we answer lasuye to include charitzin v'neitzin. Include these other kind of holes. Charitz, or neitzin. So the Gemara charitz needs a head of load. The Mishnah already mentioned it. It says in the Mishnah. Boy, it says every kind of boy. Boy, sheikh, ma'ala charitz and neitzin. Tony v'had mefarish. First, the Mishnah tells you generally, then it's mefarish in detail, and how deep does it have to be before you chayiv 10 tvachim. And we learn out from boy. Why tax the Mishnah have to go be so specific? Just say boy, or say one other example. Why all these examples? Each one is a chiddush. Tzricha. The ton of boy, but only said boy. Having never thought boy. Asada who these behavol. I was at a boy that's 10 tvachim deep. This foul mushum the cotton. It's narrow. The tzricha and it's tight. So therefore there's foul there. Abo shiach the orish shiach which is long, even though it's narrow, it's long. Maybe aim about les behavol. Maybe like you were just saying before. There's no foul there, but it's only 10 tvachim deep. The ton of shiach. I mean, I thought shiach hasadi behavol. Okay, there 10 tvachim. You have foul there. From the cotton, so he says narrow. Avomaida cave. The my boy it's square. Aim about soda. Let's maybe put it square so there's plenty of room there. Maybe there's fresh air and there's no foul there. The Mishnah there's foul there as well. The Torah Maida at least has a cover. Have I mean Maida bas soda needs bavola. No, it's not for but has a havola mishum the metallo has a cover. Ava charitz the metallo has no cover, so all the air basically escapes. Aim about soda bavola. Maybe there's no foul there. As the Mishnah says, Mishnah, yes. The Tana Charitzin, I mean, I would thought Charitzin, I saw you, nobody has foul Mishnah the last, but Abicha, doesn't get any wider on top, it's a square going up vertically. It's famous to tell you, it's just as wide up on top as the bottom. So the air in the bottom doesn't have a way to escape. I've only eaten, when it comes to the eating, the Abichim Milael, famous to tell you, it gets wider and wider as it goes higher. Definitely the foul air escapes. Aim about Soda, Lisbon, with 10 Fachim, there's no Havola, come on, there is. Quickly to the bottom. So now we learn. What happens if it was less than 10 tvachim deep? But the animal died, you're exonerated. But if the animal got hurt, you got to pay. If the animal died, you are potter. But who's a big chayiv? Now, my time of why? Why you potter? Because there's no impact. The foul way, what's really the difference? It must because the impact there is much less. You only fell 9 tvachim, and therefore if it died, you're not responsible. According to that, I was saying the foul there, there's no foul there. 9 tvachim deep there's no foul there. Someone asked this question then. So if the animal got hurt 9 tvachim, if you have to pay, but if you tell me there's no foul there, why pay? And you tell me that you're not responsible for impact because I'm only a cause. Amri, there's levels of foul there. Ein havola l'misa v'yeshav on sikir. It's hard to understand. The animal broke his foreleg, and we're going to say it happened because of the foul there. It's very hard to understand how it works there. Anyway, in a practical way. Tell you about who told you it was an ox. The Nafal Arisa that fell into this, I guess, a little creek. The creek was called an Amasa Mayim. An Amasa Mayim is because generally it's 1 amma wide, 6 tvachim wide, and let's say, and what do you call it? And 1 amma deep. That's what it was. Less than 10 tvachim deep. So this cow fell into this creek. The daloi from that water that used to irrigate your fields, and the master thought that's it. The animal is gonna. How do the animal survive? Won't survive. is a shachte more. The owner went ahead and shachted. Is tarfir of nachman. I'm going to say why? Because you have to leave it 20. You have to do one or two tests. Either let the animal walk. Some places are very machbah that every chicken before they shacht it, they'll let it walk to see whether it's not a treifa. Or wait 24 hours. The animal's still alive, then we say that probably nothing happened. So this guy didn't wait. So tarfir of nachman. He said it's treifa because maybe the avarian got displaced. What happened from that fall, from the impact. Externally, we don't say anything doesn't matter. We don't know what's happening internally amongst the organs. Said, this guy had patience. We're going to take him, the high the owner of this cow. We're taking Kavod the Kamcha, taking some food along with him to travel to the closest bezin. Tana made the drush. He would have gone to a basic measure. They would have told him, "Im shas and aisling sheda. You have to shecht your animal. You could have waited 24 hours and see his caution." Like after the Bava Kama Daf, he would not have lost then. Now he shechted his animal, and I had to make a trace. But what do we see from here? He holds impact. If there's no impact, then why say that the animal chalas straight? Alma Kasara Nachman holds that yesh chabota b'pach masara, that there is impact less than tvachim. The foul ear doesn't make the animal treif. It's the impact. That's why he made treif. So which is similar to Shmuel. Eiser Nachman. It says in the Mishnah, "Kusim asar tvachim less than 10 tvachim deep enough for tereshah chamayv made potter." My time of why lam mishum led bechabata. The Mishnah says that your potter if you got less than 10 tvachim because there's no impact. Kasha Nachman. So he said, "Lo no mishum less behavola." He says there is no havola. I agree with Rav, the other way around. I hold like Rav that when it comes to damages, why are you paying because of the foul ear? And therefore there's no foul there to kill the animal, so you're potter. But there is impact. As far as the zikin is concerned, you're exempt, you're exonerated because you're only a cause. But as far as treif is concerned, I don't care who's responsible. The fact that the animal it was an impact, the animal might have, got hurt, become treif. So you must say, you would tell me there's no foul there at all. Less than Tadvachi, being Huzak, it says in the Mishnah, but you got damage, you're paying, there's no foul there. There's not enough foul there to kill, but there's enough foul there to cause damage. We'll stop here and continue tomorrow. Tomorrow Shabbos ends at 9:30, so